Egypt tourism industry is facing more difficult times ahead after the Egypt Air flight MS-804 crash dealt another severe blow to the already struggling sector. There has already been a 5% drop in international travelers coming to Egypt since after the crash. The amount of European travelers in particular dropped 18%.
Though airline ticket agents say there hasn't been a significant reduction in Egypt's air ticket sales, senior travel agents say their business will inevitably suffer losses as a result of the crash.
Airlines do not operate simply to make money. They also represent and connect countries. Such a serious plane crash will have a huge impact on Egypt's tourism industry, especially when we still do not know the cause of the crash.
Travel agents say they have witnessed trends of cancellations from tourists since October last year, when a Russian passenger plane crashed over the Sinai Peninsula after a bomb that was planted on board exploded. The situation worsened again in March when an Egyptian national hijacked an Egypt Air flight wearing a suicide vest that turned out to be a fake. The decline has aroused concerns about Egypt's economy, as it's heavily reliant on tourism. However, some are able to see a bright side of the grim situation.
This plane crash will cause quite some damage to Egypt's tourism and economy, to France as well. But I also think there is a positive point through this incident. These recent incidents also let Egyptians themselves realize that Egypt has become a target for attacks. There are some who try to cause damage to Egypt and its economy.
Since the hijacking last time, Egypt's Security Department has set up an alert mechanism.
And Morocco has cut its economic growth forecast for this year to less than 2% from 3% after the cereal harvest suffered its worst drought in 3 decades. The North African Kingdom expects a cereal crop of 3.35 million tons, down from last season's record 11 million tons. Agriculture accounts for 15% of the economy, which grew 4.4% in 2015. The government is also planning to renegotiate a precautionary credit line with the International Monetary Fund. And Kenya's central bank has reduced its policy lending rate by 100 basis points to 10.5%, saying inflation was expected to decline further. Analysts had expected the bank to hold rates, but the bank's Monetary Policy Committee said lower inflation had created room to ease policy. Inflation fell to 5.27% in April from 6.45% in March, well within the government's preferred band of 25 to 7.5%. Analysts said the easing stance taken by the central bank after holding rates since last August showed policymakers were keen to support the economy. Well, Nigeria is maximizing the potentials of its sovereign wealth fund by investing in private equity and infrastructure domestically. The chief executive of the Sovereign Investment Authority, Uche Orji, explained to stock traders on the floor of the exchange that the fund is looking to float an infrastructure bond. In this interview with Channel's business producer Temple Ashaju, Mr. Orji gave a breakdown of how the strategies would be executed.
First of all, the visit to the NSE is for us, a visit to an agency, organization within the country that we believe is very important, not just for what we do in terms of price discovery, it's also important for the overall financial system, in my opinion, stability in the country. So part of this visit is, as part of our ongoing collaboration with the stock exchange in terms of seeing areas where we can work together. So the significance of this visit should not be over-extrapolated. However, I also say that as we start to focus our infrastructure fund, Nigeria Infrastructure Fund, which is a domestic fund for us, agencies like the Stock Exchange will be very important in helping us actualize that vision in the future. So that's really part of, but this is a long scheduled visit for us, but this is a repositioning of the Sovereign Wealth Fund to try and do a lot more domestically by way of infrastructure.
So in terms of infrastructure fund, are we likely to be seeing an infrastructure bond, which a lot of investment analysts and advisors have been calling for?
We'll be looking at those as one of the tools and instruments we'll be bringing to bear in terms of advancing our infrastructure. It's one of the products that we are considering. We're also creating co-investment funds where we're bringing capital from outside the country. So we're closing one or two. Well, this year you see one for agriculture and you see one for real estate.
Our state of emergency has been declared in the tomato sector in Kaduna State, north central Nigeria. Kaduna's Governor Malam Nasir El-Rufai declared the emergency, saying that 80% of tomato farms have been ravaged by a pest called Tuta absoluta. The price of a basket of tomato has been on the increase. Meanwhile, any moment from now, the Central Bank of Nigeria will announce its next monetary policy direction. All markets across board are eagerly waiting for this announcement. Let's see how the domestic commodities market is doing ahead of the MPC's announcement. Adim Okwesa, research analyst at Financial Derivatives Company, joins me now. Good afternoon, Adim.
Good afternoon, Chimizu.
Yeah, so what's happening to the domestic food prices ahead of the MPC meeting?
Yeah, nothing much has changed. Still the same. Prices are still at record highs, especially with tomatoes now. Tomato problem is very acute. So I've never seen prices this high.
Now, there is this story making the rounds about tomato disease, that's Tuta absoluta. What is this about?
Yeah, actually, the disease originates from South America. But one thing that we need to know is that this happens every year. It's not a one-off disease. But the reason why this disease is this acute this year is because there's a higher demand for tomato, especially considering the fact that tomato paste was one of those items on the list of 41 items that were banned from the official window. So there's a high demand for tomato. So that's why, yeah. And it's only Nigeria that it affects. It actually affects East Africa and, of course, South American countries.
Now, is this tomato pest attack anywhere linked to the 400% hike we've seen in tomato prices?
Yes, of course. I think that's the main reason now. This disease contributes to about 40%. We lose about 40% of tomatoes output to this disease. And that we're not even thinking about the problems we face from lack of storage facilities and bad transportation networks. So this disease is actually one of the problems. And we have to import most of our tomatoes from neighboring countries, from Cameroon and Niger Republic, just to meet our demand. And of course, factories in the north, tomato factories in the north have to shut down because they don't have tomatoes to process. So it's become.
Well, the Kaduna state government has just declared a state of emergency on tomato because of this pest. What would be the implications of this going forward?
It just means prices would likely keep on going on unless this situation is addressed. And the problem is that this disease actually has a high mutation capacity, so it's a very difficult one to address. And if you spray pesticides, it will be able to adapt to these pesticides. And that's the problem. So what needs to be done is a comprehensive program needs to be formed to address each life cycle, the disease at each life cycle, because just spraying chemicals won't address the problem. Spraying pesticides and growing crops in a controlled environment is just a temporary solution. This problem will still occur again.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Adin. Welcome back. Well, just before we get to the FMDQ OTC market, let's look at other developments right there in Egypt, while mass production of Primus stoves have all but disappeared. A small workshop in Cairo is keen to keep the traditional item in production, carrying on the family business as one of the few remaining manufacturers in Egypt. Well, we seem to have FMDQ ready right now. Let's take a quick look at what's happening there at the market. And I'm being joined by a fixed income trader from Wema Bank, Olaleko Idowu. Good afternoon, Olaleko.
Good afternoon.
Right, any moment from now, the MPC will announce its monetary policy decisions. How is the market awaiting this announcement today?
Actually, the market opened with a bullish trend this morning, and we are convinced level of the yield presently, because if you look at the last data, GDP data, it came out negative results. And not only that, bear in mind that inflation is still going up. So MPC were actually faced with two different head of that bit, and some dealers in the market believe that MPC will see fighting the monetary policy further. And some still have in the opinion that probably they might maintain all the chances for now to see how everything plays out because of the DCB negative that comes out. Because for the next quarter, if the GDP come out negative, then we go to recession, and we need to be very much careful with how we increase rates, or how we contract our monetary policy decisions.
Now, in terms of liquidity, what are your expectations? I mean, the markets will come to a close in just a few minutes' time.
Actually, the financial market liquidity opened with 215 billion today. And tomorrow, market will take you from MPC decision. And I expect MPC should actually keep those stances flat for now, to see how those the increase in fuel price and the other part of that dictate the market direction to remain stable before they actually increase the rate.
All right, thank you very much, Olaleko. Thank you for your time. Well, it's on that note that we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimize Ubiwa. Have a good afternoon.